Beyond.
Welcome to Podcast Beyond, episode 462. This is a fireside chat.
Oh, is it? Well,
for
a
a couple seconds, it's going to be a fireside chat.
More than a couple seconds.
My name is Marty Sleva. I am joined by Andrew Goldfarb.
Brap.
Yep, that's you. Everyone else who's usually on the show is at New York Comic Con.
Yep.
We're traveling to New York Comic Con.
We call it Nike.
But that's fine because obviously the big topic this week is PSVR.
Yes.
Which we haven't got a chance to really play a lot of. We've played it at preview events, but we weren't part of the core review crew. I mean, you don't really review games.
But you know who was?
3 special guests that are going to be appearing later on in the show. So we're kind of we're gonna talk about some non-VR news at the top, and then we're going to have quick 15-minute segments with the 3 sort of main IGN voices in terms of the PSVR review.
Yes, for sure.
Some of them you'll know, others you'll also know.
Oh, that's a good tease.
Thanks, man. That was really good.
I'm really excited that Mac Has Messina is coming back.
Yeah.
To review a PSVR game.
Yeah, incredible. I can't believe you did that.
It's not happening.
So, small tidbits of news. Outlast 2.
Yeah, a demo that's up now, I believe, right?
Yeah, it's up now, and it's going to be available, a free demo, available up until November 1st. I imagine it's just sort of what you've seen videos of and what we've played at trade shows.
And if you're spooked by scary stuff like Outlast, because Outlast is a scary game, we have the full demo up, so you can watch it while pausing or sobbing or holding hands with a loved one.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best way to play games is to hold hands. Every time I look over, there's just cornbread here.
It's pumpkin bread.
Yeah.
Greg Miller made me, well, let's even read on camera, this lovely pumpkin bread. Very good. Shout out to Greg. Tweet at him. His name is @GameOverGreggy. He's a young upstart, and he's a fantastic baker.
You're eating... Okay, so this is... the ham episode is your fault because you brought the apple. You started with the apple.
That's true. The ham's 100% not my fault. That was Max.
I don't think so. Don't blame the dead.
Oh. Yeah, Outlast is really cool, though. Like, I'm not super into crazy horror stuff. Like, I didn't get into Indonesian stuff, but Outlast weirdly is gripping to me, and I don't know what it is about it.
Grippy? Like the
it's
toad?
Grippy Toad,
Grippy Toad
from the Star Fox game.
Grippy for his pleasure.
I'm leaning away from the mic when I bite in, too.
Wow, wow. Theater of the mind. Just watching you get a nice chew on. So the demo is sort of... Red Barrels has said that it's not indicative of a scene from the game, but more of like a... tone piece collage of things you'll experience, which you see in the demo. It's very much you're going from one setting to another, from a school to a farm to paranormal stuff to people chasing you to Cthulhu-ish stuff.
It's almost like a weird greatest hits. Like in a weird way, it's like a tour of like abbreviated experiences that give you an idea of what you can expect from the full.
Pre-greatest hits. This is what we think the greatest hits will be.
Yeah, that would be funny if bands did that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's what choosing a single sort of is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Hey, Taylor Swift, please write in and let us know what choosing a single is like.
Oh. Greg and I went to see Taylor Swift.
Oh,
yeah.
I bet he didn't make you any pumpkin bread, though, huh?
No. We're making banana bread tonight, boys.
Pumpkin bread.
The other big piece of news, Andrew, Donkey Kong Ramba is coming to the PlayStation 4.
Yes, Danganronpa 1 and 2 Reload, it's called. It'll be Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc, which is the first game, and Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair. These games, like, I am such an evangelist for these games. They are wonderful. They are weird. Really cool, very basic premise for people who don't know. There's a high school in the first game called Hope's Peak Academy, which is the only students there are people who are the best in the world at something. And you play as a character who is the world's luckiest student because he won a lottery to get to go to this school. But when he arrives...
Does that make him literally the luckiest person?
The luckiest student who
There's
applied. There's a lot of brackets after that one. But when he gets there, all the doors lock, and windows lock, and... psychotic school head basically tells them that they all have to murder each other in order to escape. And it's like a really weird, almost like Hunger Games-ish type of thing. But the actual gameplay is it's a visual novel where you're going through in first person and sort of investigating the school. And when a murder happens, you have to find clues. And then at the end of each chapter, there's a trial. And basically, if the person who committed the murder gets caught, then they're executed. And you have to find the clues and accuse them. And it's just super fun. Second game's a little more robust. It's more open on an island. But really, really fun games. It's only $40 for both on PS4 or a special edition for $60. Cannot recommend these enough. Also, if you already have a Vita, just play them now because there's not going to be any major gameplay differences in the PS4 version. But just a cool way to get ready for Danganronpa 3.
Yeah. And that's something I feel like you and Colin have been talking about that game on this show for many years.
Yeah, Colin, much before me. It took me a while to get into it. The name's weird. It like the head of the school I mentioned
has that weird bear.
He's a big scary bear. Yeah, he's divided in half. But the games are they're so delightfully odd, and I really think that like for fans of like weird anime stuff, it's just great. I really like those games.
Fans of the genre.
Fans
Weird
of the genre.
Anime stuff.
Yep.
Another talking about Mafia 3. It's coming out Friday.
I can't wait for that review. It'll probably be here this week.
It's going to be so soon. No, we are not. 2K has declined to send early review copies. And so I'm on the review for that, but our codes don't unlock until the game comes out in Australia, which is early morning Thursday. So probably
it's like 4 a.m.
This is already, I think, out by then.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm going to just be playing it all day Thursday, all day Friday. I'm hoping to have impressions up Friday evening before we leave.
And we're going to try and do a Let's Play on
Friday.
Friday.
We're going to do a stream on Friday from 1 to 3 p.m. Pacific time, and then hopefully we'll have a full review up next week. And a lot of people are worried, like, is that a death knell for games? Is that a bad sign? Because historically, a lot of times for movies and games, that is a bad sign.
Yeah.
Granted, there's stuff like Doom that came out earlier this year that didn't have review copies. That was awesome.
Yeah, it's rare for it to be an offline game because I think the Doom excuse, which we don't know if it was an excuse or if it was real, but they said they didn't want people to experience it before the servers were up for multiplayer.
Well, all I did was play the single player, and I thought that game was wonderful.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see. I have high hopes for Mafia.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, granted, we're playing it all weekend, but I'm very excited to unleash crocodiles onto a clan rally.
Yeah, and to go on a cool riverboat gambling tour.
That's always what I want to do in my life, and I've never been able to do one.
Hates avocados, dreams of riverboat gambling tours.
Did you just quote my Twitter bio?
Maybe.
That's very creepy.
I like it.
Very creepy. Yeah, honestly, that's the news. So we're going to not get out of the way, but we're going to invite our first guest to talk about his experiences with the PlayStation virtual reality.
There's a show I like to watch called The Great British Bake Off, and at the end of every episode, they award a star baker. And when they start to award the star baker, they try and do like a little fake out, and they're like, this baker is blah, 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 and they make you think it's going to be one person, and then ends up being someone else. So we should do that for each of our guests. This baker is a former reverend who you might say has pockets filled with soup.
Holy crap. Why did you watch that show?
Oh, that show's wonderful.
Don't watch that show.
No, it's Mary Berry, it's Paul Hollywood. They are judging these bakers.
Former mayor of Washington, D.C., Marion Barry, who was unlawfully discharged from his duties
you know
for
who would
smoking
do
crack
very
cocaine
well
in the
on
90s.
The Great British Bake Off is Greg Miller, baker of such pumpkin breads as this one.
I don't
we'll
think he's
be right
British.
back, folks.
Christ.
No!
I don't know what transition you're going to
I don't know what's happening.
I hope it's like a really spooky Star
I don't know
Wars.
whatever audio transition that is very weird because we were like very quiet and then we made a
It's
ghost
just
noise.
a cool like electric guitar.
We were talking about pumpkin bread, and it's all quiet.
And two in the
and
hand,
suddenly-
one in the booth.
You were doing like the old News Ghost thing. I haven't heard the News
brought
Ghost
him
in
back
forever.
for PlayStation
You're like,
VR.
Oh, I thought we were talking about PlayStation 4 Arcade Archives.
Ooh-wee.
Because that's what I came prepared to talk about, with several sheets of PlayStation 4 Arcade Archives by
Yeah,
Hamster.
because I told you that you could have 15
You
minutes. to talk
did. You
about
said I
whatever
got a
you
15 minutes to talk whatever I want. So I'm going to talk about
Well,
the fact that Darius just came out in Japan.
Let's put a
Which means
pin
it's
in that to talk about.
Let's put a pin and just tear the piece of paper.
Let's not tear that. I mean, I could play the Ninja Warriors. I could play. It's pretty soon. Elevator Action is probably coming.
But what about Super Hypercube?
Oh, Super Hypercube. We'll get to that. We could be talking right now about Gradius 2, which you can play on your PlayStation 4. Actually, this really is an underrated collection of well-emulated games that you can play right now.
Rated.
Some of these, some of these are real rarities.
Aggressively rated.
The arcade version of Bubble Bobble's on there. That's a great game.
Babble Booble?
No, Bubble
Shout
Bobble.
out to Nicole who gave me this great haircut.
Yep.
Just a couple
We
days
play the
ago.
original Bomb Jack, which is a really cool arcade game. And yeah, these are on
Hey,
there.
we got to play PlayStation VR and it's not out yet.
PlayStation VR.
Jared.
What's that?
Thank you for coming on.
No
you
problem.
got to
Elevator
play Super Hypercube, which as of this moment. So just to clarify, the way we were sent games is sort of in waves. And so we reviewed Wave 1. That had a handful of games. Most of them we'll be talking about. Wave 2 is on its way. But as of right now, one of the 2 highest rated games, standing at a 9.0, is Super Hypercube.
Super Hypercube, not unlike the important PlayStation Arcade Archive game Terra Cresta. The Samurai
It's
game.
absolutely unlike it.
Yeah, it is unlike it. And you know what it is? Super Hypercube is bodacious. It's really, really good. We gave it
And like what I'm familiar with it in that I've seen like footage and stuff.
Yeah.
But like, how would you describe this to someone who's never seen the game?
I'm going to steal Vince Ingenito's wonderful prose about this, where he said, it's sort of like, you know when you drop the final big, long 4-block in Tetris and complete a Tetris and clear 4 lines? He's like, it's that feeling over and over and over and over and over again. That's what playing Super Hypercube feels like. It's a skill-based arcade-style game. There's one mode. There's no weird options or anything. You just drop in. It's like, I'm a little block. Bloop, go through the hole. Okay? The faster and quicker and more efficiently I do that, the more other little cubes hook onto my cube and change its three-dimensional shape. There's a gate up ahead. I rotate to go through the gate faster and faster, and I'm incentivized to go quicker by getting special abilities faster and higher scores. And I'm just going and going and going. It's building and building and building, and sooner or later you're going to screw up, but you learn something every time and get better. It's a great loop.
So kind of, it's if you can't picture this, picture. There's those Japanese game shows where like there's a wall coming towards the contestant and they have to sort of contort their body into a shape in order to fit through said wall.
Almost like the Looney Tunes style thing where there's like a, like
a man-shaped hole in a wall.
Exactly.
Yeah, the shape of a man, not unlike the
Yeah.
shape of the man in Double Dragon 2, The Revenge, available on
Absolutely
PlayStation 4
unlike their
Arcade
shapes.
Archives.
That man didn't have a head.
Super Hexagon on iPhone. I weirdly, like gameplay-wise, it's totally different, but that is what I think of when I look at this game.
Yeah, you look at it and it looks kind of like a well-dropped game. It doesn't feel like anything else. I mean, there are comparisons. There's it's a little bit country and a little bit rock and roll. It's a little bit Tetris and a little bit Puyo Puyo. It's a lot of things, but it's different than them all. The VR is used with tremendous subtlety, but it's essential to the game. I don't think this game would work without VR.
Well,
you watch it and you think it would.
That's my question for I'm going to ask that question like 10 times in this podcast. For every game people are talking about, that is my biggest question. Could this work without VR?
I don't think so. I
Wait,
watch
does it literally work without VR?
This game? I
Is
haven't
it?
tried.
I think it's only
no, is
available
it?
in VR.
Okay, so here's the darn problem. You get the cube in front of you, and the better you're doing, the bigger the cube gets. You're at a point in the game eventually where you were literally leaning around the edge of the cube to see what's happening because you got to see the gate coming up, and that effect of it coming out of the distance and being able to discern it because you're there in the game, it pulls you in beautifully, and you're just like, oh, this is a simulation of the way my eyes really work that could not be conveyed by a television screen adequately. And this leaning effect that is an integral part of the game and looking at things from different angles constantly. I don't think you could pull this off on a TV. Plus, it's so subtly and smart. Polytron did such a good job pulling you in. Like, your PlayStation controller is represented in the game. The camera and the controller know where they are in physical space, and there's this cool Tron-like wireframe of it. They're right in front of you the whole time. And so you're kind of pulled into the world. You don't... It's right on the edge of augmented reality in that regard.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah, these two worlds are kind of crossing over, but it's so otherworldly. No, I don't think this game would work in a non-VR environment. You could make a game like this, but I don't think it would be
You need to
as
tweak the
fun.
mechanics. And you said Polytron, who are the developers of Fez.
They did this in cooperation with another group of folks. But yeah, it's got that. The ambience works really well for it. And again, you can read the review if you want the whole spiel. I liken it to this. It's like leaping over an abyss in an action movie for a ladder, like the rung of a ladder. And it's so perfectly tuned. It feels so good. Like somebody built this really simple game and then spent what seems like countless weeks just being like, how do we make this absolutely perfect? So that the timing on everything is great. So you reach for that rung. You always feel it brush your fingers. But you either close your hand around it and make the grab, or you brushes and you fall. It's that feeling constantly.
I want to try it, and it's like if anyone hasn't heard of this, I encourage you to watch videos. But the boat I'm in, I've only watched videos, and this is one of the few games where I really want to just experience it.
Yeah,
it's also cool that not cool, but like given some drama recently with Oculus, there's no Oculus version of this planned anymore. So this is theoretically right now PSVR will be the only way to play.
12 months it comes to 5.
Yeah,
right. I mean, as far as I know, it's not yet.
Yeah.
Yep.
I could be wrong.
And there's also another question we ask people. You can just play this game sitting down.
You can just play this game sitting down. Yeah,
With
you're
the
leaning.
PS4 controller.
You're moving around. You're playing with a PS4 controller. You don't need move. You're leaning. You're changing your angles, but you don't need special controllers. You don't have to stand up to play it. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't recommend that you stand up and play it. Also, don't just play it once and be like, oh, I get it. That's not true. You think you get it when you first start playing, but it starts throwing curveballs at you, doing some very creative things. And
True
also,
life video
when
games.
you start, it's a lot like Geo Wars. You understand the principle of what you're supposed to do, but you don't understand how to be good at it.
I mean,
Especially as
for
you
a
get
long
further.
time. I'm still not good at it,
games like
but I'm getting
Geometry
better.
Wars, Super Hexagon, Pac-Man Championship Edition DX.
Yeah.
Those are games that it's like they're not really changing at all. Like you have the game there right from the get-go, and the thing is, the game gets better as you get better, and as you become more comfortable with the early stages and are getting to that. Like I would play Geometry Wars and to be like, all right, I'm going to play the first 2 minutes. Or same thing with Super Hexagon. I'm going to play the first 2 minutes, which are now muscle memory, so that I could have that 30 seconds afterwards where I'm like always on the precipice of failure.
Not unlike Crazy Climber, now available on PS4 Arcade Archives.
Really quick before we let you go. No, real quick. Any other VR games you tried out in PSVR that are in this launch lineup that you like?
Okay, so I joked with Dan about Super Hyperbole, but I don't want to play anything else right now on PSVR. I want to play more Super Hypercube.
Yeah.
I've watched people playing Thumper. That's intriguing. When we got our hands on Rez, I want to play around with that more.
Yeah, of course.
But honestly, this is one of those games that I could just play and probably will. When next time I have access to PSVR, I'm going to play more Super Hypercube, and I'm going to play it for hours and hours. It's like the kind of game that you feel like you should be walking into a Will Gibson 21st century future of some other time arcade, and that's what they're playing.
So that's funny because I feel like obviously we're going to have another special guest on talking about Thumper, which is also very highly reviewed, and then also all of us playing Rez felt the same way, where it's funny that it seems like a handful of the more remarkable games at launch are these very Tron-like otherworldly. It's not like we're simulating reality. It's like, oh no, we're simulating a place none of you are ever going to go to.
Oh, it's kind of like our coworker Sam Claiborne says about his take on open world games. He doesn't like to play games that are set in contemporary real settings. He's like, I go to video games to do something I can't do in real life.
Yeah.
And
Ooh,
it's like virtual reality is maybe more ideally suited for that than anything.
Yeah.
So I think there's a reason these games are succeeding. It's because people settled on well-grounded core design principles that they knew could be implemented in that space, and then they went with aesthetics that transport us to other worlds in an instantly recognizable, highly rewarding way. And man, Super Hypercube nails that. I mean, we gave it a 9. It's one of the best games I've played this year, and this has been a year of terrific video games.
Yeah. It's been a really good year.
Oh, it's been an incredible year.
I'm really excited.
It's one of the best years. This is one of the best years in games history.
Yeah.
This year's nuts.
And then also, I guess just the last thing, what are your impressions on PSVR?
It's comfortable.
As a headset,
it's light.
yeah.
This is now I'm going to steal from another person who's smarter than I am. Jeremy Parrish, who talks about how the Game Boy was the king of good enough. That Nintendo's always been really good at making systems that are good enough. They meet at affordability and capability. The PSVR is in that same wonderful space. It's at close to the right price point. It is tremendously capable. My experience with it has been that it's comfortable and well engineered, and at least as well as I can tell from short exposure, it works very well. It's not hard to put together and get going. I like PSVR. I think that if we keep getting solid software support, this thing will be around for a long time. I anticipate we're going to have a degree of success with it comparable to what Microsoft had with first generation Kinect. And then whether or not that ends up having legs is going to be in Sony's court. If they decide to continue supporting and growing on the library around that and developing the technology, that's wonderful. But they made it, I think, about as cheaply as they could and have it be capable. And that was a really smart decision.
Yeah.
It's practically plug and play.
Yeah, that's the thing. And it's also
yeah.
one of the few ones where I could just sit in a room by myself and easily put the headset on myself. It is by far the most comfortable, especially for people with glasses like us.
Plus,
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
it will work. I mean, it's not like you have to download drivers or have a specific PC calibration. Like, you know that if you have a PS4, this works.
No new product has reminded me so much of the original Game Boy as PSVR since the original
So
Game Boy.
is this the Tetris to PSVR's Game Boy?
No, I don't think you get, because Tetris was a perfect pairing of hardware and software that demonstrated, hey, here's why you want to take this thing with you everywhere you go. Tetris, the Game Boy was $90 and ran for 30 hours on like 4 batteries, and Tetris was like, this is why you want this thing all the time. Super Hypercube, as compelling and powerful as it is not a single system seller for virtual reality. Isn't going to sit and go, here's absolutely everything you want to do in VR. What it is here's a great thing, a amazing thing, a magnificently crafted thing you can do in VR that is not a demo, that you will not get tired of. but it isn't quite Kasparovian in it. Or it's Kasper. Listen to me. I'm getting Kasparov.
Embarrassing us, Jared.
I know. Sorry about that.
You're not at all
my chess masters mixed up with my Tetris.
Tetris masters.
Yeah. But no, I wouldn't say it's quite at that level, but it's still extraordinary, and everybody should play it.
That's awesome.
That's very exciting. Well, I'm stoked to play it. And I honestly don't think. I think we're past the days of Tetris or a Mario 64.
I disagree. I think we're going to get one. I think it's going to be a virtual reality game.
But he means like at launch.
Yeah.
Oh, at launch.
Like I don't know that we'll ever.
I mean,
maybe not.
I'm
never,
talking. I think the next Mario 64 is waiting to happen. I think we got another one out
Really?
there. Yeah.
Do you think there's been a Mario 64 since Mario 64?
No, but I do think we're going to get something that's going to drop down from outer space and be like, wow, there were video games before this thing, and there were video games after them.
I think that's
again.
Mario 64 and GTA 3 are the ones we talk about all the time.
Super Mario Brothers, Mario 64, GTA 3 is a big one. Tetris is probably a big one. There's Doom is one of those.
Yeah,
maybe Elder Scrolls.
I mean,
maybe,
anything that kind of births a genre, for
yeah.
better or worse, becomes that game
Yeah.
where it is. Even if that game isn't the best example, I feel like it becomes like you said, the before and after is that game.
I think someday somebody's going to nail third-person 3D space and virtual reality, which is where I think the breakthrough is going to happen. It's not going to be a first-person experience. It's going to be a third-person experience, is my guess. That's based on some of the early demos I played with. It made me go, oh, here's where I can do something in a video game I could never do before.
Yeah.
And it's not from what I'm seeing out of my eyes. It's from what I'm doing with the controller in 3D space.
I mean, even what you're describing, looking around the cube, sounds like that to me.
It's
though.
great.
Like that's really cool.
Oh, it's just extraordinary. It's like holding a magic sword.
Yeah.
It's a really good game.
Yeah,
I
love that.
But I do think someday, and I'm not quite sure what it's going to be because I'm not smart enough to be the one who figures it out. I always go back to A Mind Forever Voyaging, which is this old Infocom text game that I played. That's about you play as an AI in a laboratory in South Dakota. And you're being sent into you're simulating the future inside yourself and being sent into futures you're generating constantly to try to like solve the world's problems. I'm doing a terrible job describing this game. Nobody's ever done anything quite like it, and I feel like it's kind of this like beautiful lost gem. But someday somebody's going to take that incredible storytelling focus and they're going to make I wish I could avoid the cliche, but they're going to make that Citizen Kane. They're going to make something in games, something in simulation that is different and distinctive from every other form of storytelling we've experienced. Cool. I think Super Mario did that. I think Mario 64 did. I think it does. That's coming again.
Awesome. We can only hope.
I'm excited.
Yeah,
you know what else I'm excited for?
Well, I'm gonna
PS4 arcade archives, which are available on. Seriously,
rip that in half.
I'm really excited. There's a really good sense that we're going to get Darius coming very soon.
In the last few moments we have you, I want to plug. If you liked The Three of Us, there's another thing you can watch The Three of Us on, and it's called pornography.
Yep.
Whoa.
The three of us made a love-making.
I was not aware of this.
You know, yikes.
No, we're on. I mentioned in Jared's intro that he keeps a bunch of soup in his pockets. Yep. Jared, in 30 seconds, why?
I'll want me to plug? I'll plug.
Okay,
Jared,
never mind. Marty's
Jared's modest. Jared has a podcast called Pockets Full of Soup, where he interviews folks not about video games, but about people they're thankful for. And in episode 10, every 5 episodes, he does something different. In episode 10, he had 2 people on, which were us. We spent an hour on Andrew's couch talking about why we're thankful for each other.
And these boys were wonderful guests, and it really was a lot of fun. Thank you guys for doing that.
No, thank you. That was a ton of fun. So listen to
that. Jared, you're the best. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you very much for having me.
Our next baker is... I'm doing a British Bake-Off thing. Our next baker is... Oh, can you just grab her, actually?
I do want to grab... I'm standing in front of the camera.
Oh, no, that's fine. It's cool. We'll keep rolling. Our next baker is really good at Souls games.
Yeah.
And has a last name synonymous with cool.
Yeah, you could say that she bore witness to one of this year's.
Yes, that's right.
Masterpiece 10 out of 10 reviews.
I look forward to the Undertale she has to tell.
She didn't review Undertale
No, I know, but she
at all.
likes Undertale. I'm talking about things she likes.
I don't think she likes Undertale, does she?
Yeah, she absolutely does.
Are you sure?
I think so.
I feel like I think that's Callie Miranda.
No, that's 100% Chloe Ellis.
I don't think Chloe does. I'm going to find it really
We're going to ask her in 10 seconds.
My first question.
First question. She likes Undertale.
I honestly don't think she does.
Oh, dang.
This is going to be really good if she doesn't. Yes, but we're going to bring...
Speaking of really good, that pumpkin bread.
Oh, doggy. Do you have a recipe?
Also, I have to reply to Jonathan.
Hi, Chloe.
Hi.
Welcome.
I'm here to talk about
No, but
Oh no! Did you really get into the arcade archive?
Just kidding.
we just kept it rolling. Wait, so our first also welcome Chloe Red.
Hi.
Chloe
to the
Red.
podcast. Really quick, are you a big Undertale fan?
Not huge.
That was what I
Damn
said.
it! I thought you liked
What?
Undertale.
Because our whole thing is
name stuff
before
you
someone
liked.
comes in, we do a lot of very obvious hints about who it is. I said
Yeah.
you bore witness to one of this year's 10s.
Yeah.
But then he said something about Undertale, and I was like, I don't think Chloe's a big
thought you
Undertale
liked
fan.
I did
Undertale.
bear witness to that, but I mean, I bore witness to another more
I mean, that was the
10, which
thing.
is the 10 that I gave, which was for the witness.
Yeah, I was like, I think you're getting her just mixed up with Miranda and Callie.
I wasn't getting her mixed up with Miranda
Everyone in the
Kelly.
office does that. so-
I don't.
I don't.
Thank you so much for
Anyway.
Hello,
joining us,
Chloe.
Chloe.
Welcome
you
to
are.
the VR extravaganza, and also pumpkin bread and
Yikes.
arcade archive.
What did
I'm gonna
I
burn that
miss?
piece of paper. So Jared talked about Super Hypercube for quite a long time.
Yep.
But then you reviewed 2 games as well.
Yes, I reviewed Until Dawn: Rush of Blood,
Mm-hmm.
which was not very good, and Thumper, which was incredible.
Yeah, which is the
So-
second game that also has a 9.
Right,
So
Super
Super
Hypercube
Hypercube and
also
Thumper are 2 amazing games. So
Right,
which
so,
do you want to
yeah,
start with the
which one
good or
do
the
we wanna
bad?
talk about first?
Well,
It's
okay,
up to
so
you
he
guys.
was so high with Super Hypercube.
Yep.
Let's bring it down a bit.
All right.
Yeah, yeah.
Until
Let's go
Dawn.
negative first.
What is Until Dawn Rush of Blood?
Yeah, so Until Dawn: Rush of Blood is this very standard kind of like arcade-style rail shooter set on a carnival-themed roller coaster. for
Sounds
some
like Until Dawn to
reason.
me.
It is marginally related to Until Dawn, which like I know you're a big fan, Marty.
Yeah.
I loved Until Dawn myself. I don't know about you, Andrew, but
What I
He got
seen of it, I
way
liked,
too
but-
scared.
I don't like spooky stuff.
As soon as they said a Wendigo was evolved, he was like, I'm out.
I mean, can you clarify? I don't know if this is like spoilers, but like, what is the even
Right, yeah.
ballpark connection to Until Dawn?
So Until Dawn was like kind of a teen slasher horror movie that you play, right? And so without too many spoilers, I think Rush of Blood is supposed to take place like in the mind of Josh, which
Okay.
was kind of one of the characters whose two sisters met an unfortunate fate, and you see both of them frequently as kind of these like zombie girls that.
Wait, that's Mr.
It's
Robot,
sort of the
right?
tropey, Mr. Robot's character.
You're in the mind of Mr. Robot. He's got a real weird
Mr.
mind.
Robot thinks about clowns and his dead sisters and just spiders and other
Yeah.
things. I don't know. So it's like you start out on this carnival-themed roller coaster. There's actually this ringleader-style character that is played by the same guy that plays the stranger in Until Dawn, that dude in the parka that helps you out for a bit.
yeah.
So it's kind of like he's just reappropriating these people he's met, in his mind, and it's just kind of this nightmare.
I kind of like that as a narrative conceit, I guess.
It's a interesting way to make it connect to the original game, but it's so weird when you go into it. You're like, what do clowns have to do with a game that was about like Wendigos and teenage drama?
Drama,
and
yeah,
stuff?
seriously.
does
So-
it feel ham-fisted in that way? Like, do you feel like it's
No, like it never felt like it definitely feels weird, but nothing feels ham-fisted really. Like
Okay.
it's just kind of, you're just like, all right, I guess I'm on this ride now, and here I go. And,
And this is also developed by Supermassive, the same
yeah,
developers. So,
and so it's not like it's this weird third party spin
Yeah.
off or anything. And so it is fun in terms of like being a rail shooter. Like there's nothing, like here's how I would describe Rush of Blood. There's nothing that it does that makes it particularly bad. It just doesn't do anything that makes it that good. You know, it's
Makes
like
sense.
I played it, I had fun. There are definitely parts that are a lot slower than others. Like it kind of hits its high point at level 2, which is like this slaughterhouse with like these huge pigs and stuff. And I think if I vaguely remember one part in Until Dawn where like you find a pig's head or
Yep.
something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like he's trying to mess with his friends. And so that was weird. And then it kind of ends up being the super surreal, like you go down into this like abyss and there's these huge like dolls that are supposed to be like characters from Until Dawn, and it's super surreal for like a second, and you're
Sounds
just like, whoa.
Willy Wonka. Almost.
Yeah, and you're like, this is gonna get really cool. And then after that, the rest of the levels, there's like 7 total. The rest of the levels are just kind of like rickety old houses full of clowns for no reason. So you're
Man,
just
we
like,
spent so much money on these clown assets. We just
Yeah.
really gotta use them.
so it had potential for like a minute,
Yeah.
and then
What are you actually doing in the game?
you're just shooting
So
stuff.
it's, I mean,
So it's
it's
like a rail
it's
shooter.
Yeah,
House of the
real
Dead
shooter.
on a
It's
roller
like,
coaster.
you guys ever play Carnival, that old Midway game?
Jesus, yeah. Why?
I love Carnival. It's so stupid,
really bad.
but it's kind of got that same stupid, cheesy, like evil carnival theme to it, and you're just shooting stuff, and
I mean,
that's about it.
Yeah.
So the question I keep repeating over and over again is like, do you feel like this could work not in VR? Like, does it need to be in VR?
No, it absolutely could not work not in
Interesting.
VR.
Okay.
It's like, it's all about like, it's that gimmicky roller coaster based, structure that really makes it like you're kind of on a ride. But even then, it kind of sucks because it doesn't really take advantage of the fact that you're on a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Like it slows down a lot. Like there's a few times where you go, you go down like a big drop or something, and you're just like, whoa, in VR, this is.
Does it feel like, do you get that like feeling in the pit of your stomach?
I mean, no. Like so you anticipate the feeling in VR, and then it doesn't really come, but you're still kind of like, wow, this is like a cool, like, it's going really fast and stuff. But again, it doesn't really take advantage of that as often as it should, and instead it's just kind of this like walk through haunted house style thing.
It's so weird.
Yeah. So I gave it a 6. It's okay.
Yeah.
Like it, for a PSVR launch title, like it's kind of a neat thing, and it's not incredible. Like it wasn't a horrible experience, but it's just not great.
So many of the games, especially this initial volley of PSVR and just VR games in general, remind me of like arcade games. Just like literally like going to an arcade and then plugging in a couple quarters and playing. And this seems like House of the Dead, or one of those games where you get in like the little pod with a second person and you play a light gun game, and it sort of feels like that. I imagine this is 90 minutes.
And I feel like it's
like
people are just kind of in a rush to get games out there for VR, and God damn it. Oops.
It's fine.
And they, I don't know, they're avoiding taking too many risks because we just don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work in VR yet.
Yeah.
But
what
if we want to,
does work,
It's a really good segue.
Thanks, man.
Is Thumper. Is really cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Thumper is also actually on rails. It's a rhythm game.
And kind of a horror thing, the way you described it.
It is definitely much scarier than Rush of Blood. I don't know if I'm just weird, but like, so here's the basic setup: is like you're this like chrome space beetle, and you're on this like metal track, and you're just like going like at the speed of light into this like horrible abyss. It's like it's a super trippy game, and if I had to compare it to anything, it would be like that warp sequence at the end of 2001: A Space Odyssey, where it's just like weird geometry and like swirling shapes, and it's like you're in space, but it feels more like you've like left the universe and kind of just gone into this nightmare realm where like you shouldn't be, and like all the bosses are just like cosmic geometry and like
I love all this
weird aquatic like demons, and like
I'm so into that.
In VR it looks terrifying. Like I first played this game not in VR, and it actually works really well not in VR too. Like
so this is the first game we've played that you could just, if you just have a PS4, you can download.
Yeah,
PS4,
you can play
PC.
it on PS4.
Yeah.
It's coming out on PC too. It plays fantastically on both. But in VR, like things look so big, and it is just so scary to like come over like a hill and just see like on the horizon this like massive like skull thing that you fight. Like it's a recurring boss. I think its name is Crackhead.
Sounds right.
It's this like burning skull that like every time you see it at the end of every level, it just gets more and more like disfigured and like with these horns coming out of it. And
so I played this at PAX,
Yeah.
and I had a lot of fun. I had no idea there were these horrifying bosses.
Yeah, like the funny thing is, I feel like when you look at it, especially with the rhythm component, it actually reminded me most of like Amplitude.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people think maybe audio surf too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's like, it almost seems like there's even like lane changes and stuff later
Yeah,
too.
that gets introduced later.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's funny because it has this kind of like, if you just look at one screenshot, maybe you'd think like, oh, this is kind of like a sci-fi rhythm game, and it's probably like this cool like techno, soundtrack. But no, like the music in the game is like horror movie music.
Yeah.
It's like war drums and like orchestral stings and then just like industrial noise. It's just bizarre, and I love everything about it.
Yeah, playing it in VR with headphones, like almost produced anxiety.
Yeah.
Like in a like controlled anxiety. Like it really just like upped my heart rate.
It's like if we want to talk about games that like Until Dawn, Rush of Blood, like there's nothing thrilling about it, but like Thumper is just such an exhilarating experience, especially in VR. Like
with Super Hypercube, we brought up Super Hexagon.
Yeah.
Which is sort of, it has that moments where it's like you're almost playing it. You're again, we said that with that. You're playing it by the books for the first couple minutes so that you have that final 30 seconds where you're like out of control.
Yeah.
And it's like terrifying. You're like, oh my God. And then you finally do beat that high score. Is this about like beating a high score, or is this more about actually progressing through the levels?
It is. I would say it's high score based because at the end of there's 9 levels, and at the end it just fades out and gives you a score. And there's actually several checkpoints too. There's maybe like 20 or so checkpoints in each level. So like you have these moments to breathe, and it scores you on just like how you did between this checkpoint and the last one. There's 4 ranks. There's C, B, A, and then S rank, which is the best one. And what's really cool is like the game only uses like one input. Like you press X and then you use the left analog stick. So I mean 2 technically, but with just X and the analog stick, you can do like so many like nuanced like little actions and stuff. So like as an example, there's a couple basic things you have to do. You have to like hit these beats that appear on the track. You have to churn Otherwise you crash. And the game is like super brutal. Like you can feel like, I think the developers described it as a rhythm violence game, which is really cool.
I really like that.
So you churn, you blast through these barricades that again you can crash into them if you're not holding down X. But if you do these things so if you churn at just the right second, you hear this like kind of squeaking sound, which means you got a perfect turn, and that gives you more points. Later, when you learn how to like fly, if you do a perfect turn while in midair, you can get these rings that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise. So there's all these like little tricks that you learn with just this one button.
Yeah.
To like, kind of just nail every beat on the track.
I love that there's depth to like a simplicity of a control scheme.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
It's great. And what's also awesome is like because everything is set to the beat. If you manage to execute everything in like this long sequence and stuff, like not only do you build up a multiplier and stuff, but it's like everything makes this. There's these really smart sound cues, so everything generates a sound, and you kind of feel like you're adding to the music.
Oh, that's really cool. So
yeah.
Is the opposite true? Like if you're doing really badly, is it like the Guitar Hero thing where like notes stop playing or anything like that?
Yeah.
Like I mean, unless you crash, in which case like it's totally distracting and like there's just metal everywhere because your space beetle like just shatters and like it's horrible. But no, like if you just do the bare minimum, which is just not crashing, like you don't have to get any of the rings or the little like thumps on the track or whatever. Like you can skip all of those things and the music will keep going and stuff. But you both won't get the extra points and you just won't get that like satisfaction of like kind of contributing and being a part of the music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is really cool. Like I know that sounds weird to say about a rhythm game because of course a rhythm game you're, taking some part in the rhythm of the music or whatever. But like, I don't know, with Thumper it just feels so much more like, I don't want to say visceral because everyone uses
the V word.
The V word. But it's just.
It sounds like rhythm almost takes a back seat, which is cool. Like it's like it clearly is a rhythm game, but like I actually had no idea and I played Thumper at I think E3 way back, and not in VR. I didn't even know any of that. Like I had no idea there was that much complexity to it.
Yeah, I mean it's more like you're kind of creating this melody over the beat in a way. So it's like
really
if you thump before you, I don't know how to like I'm just making up terms. So if you thump before you like blast into these barricades, they'll like increase in pitch with each one you get, and they won't do that if you don't hit that beat before it. So it's kind of like it just creates this sort of melody or beat or whatever alongside the music happening in the background, and it's so well synchronized, and it just feels really really great when you're doing well, but it also is super fun even if you're not doing well.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're thumping a crackhead, like what is a boss battle mechanic then?
Yeah, so the boss battles are really cool. So the thumps, I guess, on the track, they're usually optional like in the game, but once you hit a boss, they turn green, and so you have to get every single one. And that's like while also like managing churns and like whatever else it throws at you and stuff. So you have to hit every green one, and then at the end there's like this glowing one, and you hit that, and it sends out this shockwave, and it attacks the boss. And so bosses go down in about like 4 hits.
Nice.
But it just gets harder and harder, and like if you miss one, you have to loop through that sequence. But it's just like nothing counts, and you won't be able to attack at the end. And so it brings you back to the beginning, and then you have to just try to get it perfect that time. So when you beat a boss, you know that like you will always do the sequence perfectly to actually like defeat it.
In order to beat the boss, you sort of need to come to grips with the mechanics.
Yeah, and it's cool because like when you miss, it makes you loop through, but it's a nice trade-off because like the repetition sort of helps you practice.
Yeah, you're learning.
Yeah, and so there would be points where like there were just like so many sharp turns, and I would deliberately miss the first thump to kind of count the turns, and I would be like, okay, so it's going to be like left, left, right, right, left, right. And there would be like 3 thumps in between the first, and I would go through it the first time, memorize that, and then be able to do it much easier.
Does it affect your rating if you have to do 2 loops?
It does, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because if you do the first sequence perfectly, then you get like this extra thump at the end. And
classic thumps.
So
extra points, yep.
That game sounds awesome. Rush of Blood, less so.
Yeah.
What do you think about the headset itself? Like, what do you think about PSVR?
I'm actually really surprised because the first time I used the PSVR, I didn't have a very good experience. I got really motion sick playing a different game, which is kind of like a first-person game. But I don't know if it's because both of these games are on rails, so I didn't experience that, like walking around in first person. But like I have a Vive and I never experienced that, so I don't know. So for a while I thought the PSVR, like the software wasn't very good. Like I just didn't know what to think. But the headset itself is like actually very comfortable. Like
Yeah.
the games ran very well. I never had any problems, except a couple times when I was playing Rush of Blood, the camera did like wonk out, and like my character's arms are like going all over the place.
Oh, you didn't realize you were just so into it. That was your arms. It's
Part of the horror.
Shoot all the clowns. But no, the headset is so comfortable.
Yeah.
Like I'm really surprised. Like
Yeah.
it's well, I mean, I shouldn't say that. That's me. But
No, that's
No,
not.
I
No,
mean, not at all,
I mean,
yeah.
and that's what I keep saying as someone with glasses. It's by far the most comfortable
cool.
VR headset for me, because
Yeah.
it feels like I can wear Oculus and Vive, but it does feel like it's just applying pressure to my face.
Yeah.
Whereas the space that PSVR creates gives you more than enough space.
And
for
the
your eyes.
adjustability, like I think like the fact you have the adjuster on like the eye part and on the back part is
Yeah.
actually super helpful rather than just like a band to tighten or whatever.
yeah, like the Vive, like it hurts the back of my head
Yes,
when
same.
I wear it. For,
I mean,
for a long
PSVR
period
does
of
feel
time.
like, not to sound pejorative, but in every sense of the word, like my first VR.
Yeah.
It's the easiest to set up. It's the thing that you probably already
Is
have
it
a
the
PS4.
easiest to set up?
I don't know. Is it?
I feel like I had a better time setting up my Vive.
Oh, really?
Interesting.
Oh.
That's the opposite. I mean, that's like why? Just because like Jared's almost at the opposite. Like he felt like it was almost plug and play.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so many cables, and like
Oh,
the cables
okay.
are so thick, and like
Oh,
they're-
it is like physically a pain to.
Yeah,
set up.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very straightforward. You know, like everything's labeled, like all the cords are labeled and stuff. It just was just so it's just made a mess in my living
Yeah,
room, and
yeah.
I was like, I don't want to deal with this.
Yeah, I think we're a couple years away from clean VR in terms of like
Yeah.
wireless VR.
Yeah.
Or, you know.
I mean, the PSVR is definitely easier if you're really into cable management and you want to have like a super clean home entertainment system to kind of like to set that up along
Yeah.
with all the things you already have. Whereas the Vive, like you have to have those sensors, and then people come over your house and they think you're like
Monitoring the-
security
Yeah, yeah.
cameras on there or something, which is weird. But
Monitoring all of our conversations.
Just a real quick question for both games. Did you play standing or sitting?
both I played sitting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, those are both sitters.
Why would
I
I-
like to hear.
Those
Why
are
would I
FPS.
stand on a roller coaster?
That seems
I like to
dangerous.
do that as a protest. Damn the man! I'm gonna stand in every roller coaster.
Cool. Are
That's
you
awesome.
reviewing any of the Wave 2 games? Do you know?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't. What are some of those?
I don't know. Any of the other games I launched. Rez.
You know who would know? Our next guest. who
Andrew
is-
likes doing good teases for who the next guest is.
I really want to go back and listen to this to see what mine was.
Well,
Besides
yours
the
was
Undertale.
me
It was him.
screwing up
It was
the
him
Undertale thing,
accusing
apparently.
you of being the world's biggest Undertale fan.
That's why I said the world's biggest Undertale fan. No, I said you're really good at Souls games and that your last name is a synonym for cool.
Oh, thank you.
Old Brenda Chili.
Yeah, Brenda Chili is great at Souls games. Our next guest, not great at Souls games.
The Souls game
He-
Brenda Chili's good at is
Oh,
Soul
I know who
Sacrifice.
this is.
Yeah, he's very tall, and he runs our reviews.
You know what he's not a fan of? Souls games.
That's what I said. That was the
Oh,
first
really?
thing I said.
Was it?
Literally
It
the
was.
first.
Oh, I was so stoked to make that joke.
I'm gonna
Thanks,
go.
Chloe.
I'm gonna go give him this.
Okay,
guys.
cool. No,
Oh, please
okay, wait.
don't. Please burn that to the
Okay.
ground.
All right, and we are back with our final British Bake Off contestant.
Yes, I've been giving people intros based on the way the British Bake Off introduces the Star Baker at the end of every episode.
Are you a big British Bake Off fan?
I'm a huge fan of British bacon.
British bacon.
That sounds delicious.
That
It
does
does.
sound good.
Executive editor of reviews, Dan Stapleton, who reviewed a couple of the games as well as the hardware itself. Let's start with the games. One of the big ones, obviously, is Arkham VR.
Well, even bigger than that is PlayStation Archives Arcade.
God.
God, why did this
Jared.
happen?
And here
You're the last person that gives.
and here Jared has written ha 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 ha.
Oh,
He's the Joker.
Wait, this is a tie into the joke.
No, I have literally no idea what that is.
The worst or great. Jared is a podcast terrorist.
They're just trying to get on the no-fly list. Batman.
Arkham VR.
Yes.
Is it cool?
It is cool, especially the first time through, because I mean it's using all the Rocksteady Batman assets. You get in there and you see them from a whole different perspective, which I keep telling people that over and over, it's like you don't understand what this stuff is until you actually see it, how big a difference it makes. All these characters look super small on the screen and then they're huge and in your face.
Yeah.
It's a whole different way of looking at it. And it's a detective story. It's not. I won't spoil what it's actually about because that's kind of a shock. And then
Is that what it's, without spoiling it, is that what it's actually about? That's not that's what it's about?
oh yeah,
Oh, wow.
Well, because we played 2 scenes at E3.
Yeah,
Or
without
I
going
played
to the
Gamescom.
narrative spoiler one.
Yeah. We
A
like
thing
the
happens.
first one's literally just putting your cowl on, and I think that was the thing that actually sold me on it, because it's basically like one of the things we keep asking people is, could this work not in VR? And I feel like for Batman, you absolutely need the VR, because it does feel like you are Batman, like in that moment, as stupid and cliche as that sounds.
I mean, yeah, it's like you get the sensation of like, oh, I get to grab the helmet and put it on, and put my hands in these things. I don't really believe that's how Batman puts on gloves.
Weird gauntlets.
And I certainly don't think that he puts on his suit by grabbing the bat signal, which is blue for some reason, and putting it on him. But it's the closest thing that most of us will ever experience is suiting up, except those of us who are really good at cosplay.
Yeah, that's true.
The
3 of us love to do our Batman cosplay every weekend.
So it's very good at that. I didn't feel like Batman in the way I moved at all, because I mean, for one thing, you are just teleporting around like you do in most VR games that aren't room scale on the Vive. So it's you don't get. I didn't get the physical side of being Batman.
Especially the Rocksteady Batman, which is very much you're a giant tank, but you're also mobile and flipping over dudes and flying through the air.
Right, and punching them a lot.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, like, you get close enough to a few people to punch them, but your hand passes through them unnoticed.
You're a good ghost.
Yeah, basically. So, like, I don't think it's a spoiler to say at one point there's somebody dangling upside down, and in
That's
typical
classic
Batman. Yeah, typical Batman style. He's dangling upside down, and he's like right there in front of you, like a punching bag, and you just you can't get.
It's weird that they would, because that was the thing I found interesting about it. Like in the demo, was that everything, it felt really smart with the way you could and couldn't tell what you could interact with.
Right.
Like it was like, obviously I'm not going to be able to open that door or something like that.
Right.
Did you feel like? Can you just go over basically? Like, what are the basic controls of this for someone who hasn't seen it?
So, I mean, it is, the basic controls are your hands, right? Because you're using 2 move controllers. The main interactions are, like, there's that early section where you start in, right after you start in Wayne Manor, you're in the Batcave. There's just a bunch of stuff laid out in front of you can mess with. There's, batarangs. There's things like, well, actually, the batarang is on your belt. And so are the grapnel gun and the scanner, the evidence scanner. And that's actually one of my favorite parts about it is the interface for your equipment, because you've got those things at your belt. Like, you look down, you see you don't see you see your belt floating there.
Yeah.
And you see your gadgets, and you can just grab those by reaching down with the move controller and squeezing the trigger. And that's the same as grabbing.
Super
something.
intuitive, yeah.
Right, so it feels just like, hey, I just grabbed this grapnel gun, and then you point it at Alfred's face and shoot it a bunch of times, and nothing happens.
That was when I realized I'd be really bad at being Batman during the demo, because I kept having to look at my belt and be like, which side was the grappling gun? So I'd be really bad in the moment fighting a guy.
No, by the end of this thing, it's only like 90 minutes. By the end of it, I was it's like, oh, I need the grapnel gun. That's my right hand. Yeah.
I really like that, actually. Like, it's like the VR version of how all like the menus in Dead Space existed in the world.
Exactly.
Your health existed in the world and everything, and I find that really cool.
Yeah, I've seen a few cool ideas for that kind of thing in VR games. Like there are games where to switch your weapon, you reach behind your back. Like
that's cool.
Picking
Yeah,
stuff up.
I like that.
There was one. What's it called? I forgot. But anyway, it's got a button you push on one controller, and like your inventory pops up above it, and you can just pluck things out of there.
That's really
there are a bunch of really cool things.
I like the people having fun with it like that, because there's not really
because there's no rules.
standard.
Yeah,
It's
you're
all
figuring it out. Yeah.
Experimentation is kind of what most of these early games are about.
Yeah.
But so the thing that I really liked about Arkham VR is the detective work. It's the same mechanics as Arkham Knight for rewinding a scene or and that one was more or less the same, except it was nice to be able to kind of move around, jump from point to point and see it from different angles.
Yeah.
The best part of it though is like using the scanner to search bodies and just like in Arkham Knight, they've got the 2-layer scanner. It's like, oh, look for broken bones and stuff like that.
Yep.
But actually doing that with the move controller when you've got a body in front of you, you're trying to figure that that's really cool.
Yeah.
Like
And it feels so cool watching like the it's what I like about Arkham Knight also actually is figuring out like the physics side of it, of figuring out like, well, where would this thing have landed, or where would this thing have like been thrown out of a windshield and gone. It's kind of like that in that you're like, okay, like where would I have to look for like someone to have attacked, or like what angle would this have come from, or whatever. That stuff's super fun and super smart.
And there's not a ton of it. There are a couple scenes of it, because this is not a very long game.
Yeah, it seems like 90 minutes. There's not a ton of anything.
Right. But what's there is neat.
Cool.
Really cool.
Yeah. So that's what did you end up giving it?
I give it a 7.2.
7.2.
And a lot of that is because it's not very replayable. Once you've been through it once, it's kind of a chore to get to the thing you want to get.
Yeah.
And you do get to skip ahead and replay specific scenes if you want. But most of the time, I was just kind of tapping my toe, going through the motions. Like I started playing on a new PlayStation where I didn't have my save. It's like, let's get through this.
Yeah.
So unlike we've talked about Super Hypercube, Until Dawn, and Thumper, this is a stand-up game, right?
Yes.
A standing game.
And you could play it sitting down if you really wanted to, but you turn around, not 360 degrees, obviously, because it's a game that tracks your hands, so you can't turn and have your back facing the camera, basically. You can, it just doesn't
You would just not be playing the game anymore.
So it's best played standing because Batman tends to stand. So
yeah, he's not called Sit Man.
Yeah, I love those Batman adventures where he's just sitting on the ground pointing at the bad guy.
There's so many things where he's always on that computer. And Alfred's like, "You gonna get up?" He's like, no.
I guess you do start sitting at the piano. So,
Yeah. There you
Sitting
go.
simulator. So make sure you have a piano bench handy when you play this if you want a true immersive experience. So apart from Batman, you also reviewed. Is it called PlayStation Worlds?
PlayStation VR World.
PlayStation VR Worlds.
It's
What
kind
is
of a
that?
compilation.
It is a compilation of 5 different things, 4 of which are games. One is a passive experience in which you are dunked into the ocean several hundred feet and encounter various wildlife that you get to look at.
Is it? So this is the thing. A lot of people have kind of gotten spooked by because there's a spoiler to say what the wildlife is.
I mean, it's
I don't
a thing.
think so.
Yeah, it's
a shark.
There's a shark in there.
Is it scary?
I mean, yeah, it'll make you flinch.
Yeah.
Like you have a deep instinctual desire not to be eaten by a shark.
Sure.
And this thing tries to fool your brain into thinking you're about to be eaten by a shark. So, and it does a pretty good job.
So is it like jump scares, or is it like you feel like you're being stalked?
Both.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see it coming if you know where to look.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty realistic rendition of a great white shark.
Yeah. It's VR has it sounds super hyperbolic, and I want to take it back a little bit, but like it almost is doing that thing that like those early Lumiere brothers films where it's like, here's a train coming towards the screen and people are screaming and running out of the theaters, where it's like, obviously you're in your living room, a shark's not going to eat you, but you're still like, the shark's going to eat me.
Well, no, it's an instinctive level thing. Like if something is coming at your face in VR, you will unless you're like braced and you know what's happening, you will instinctively try and get out of the way.
Do you think that's a reflex that will develop that we won't? Like in the same way a train coming at the screen, I'm not scared in a movie when a train's coming at the screen, but
I am. I run out of the theater screaming.
No, I hope not, because then I would be trained to not get out of the way of a rock hurling at my face.
yeah. This is VR, I'll be fine. No,
it's
human nature.
Yeah, I mean the distinction between this and reality is much less than like looking at a world through a little window.
Sure.
Yeah.
And in the same way, I guess it's not like we don't jump during horror movies. It's like, well, you're not going to get murdered. Well, you probably won't get murdered. There's a good chance you're not going to get murdered.
Is it for the shark specifically? Is it randomized, or like if you replay this?
No, it's exactly the same.
Okay.
It's a scripted thing, and like you play this in the way you play a movie.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be any different. So again, it's something that's not repeatable at all. But it is cool.
I feel like it's a good thing to show someone who doesn't play games.
Exactly.
Like, Grandma came over. Let's show her the shark thing. Get her scared.
No, not grandma, maybe.
And the only thing to do after you've run through it once is like there are a couple of modes where it's like, you can just go down again with none of the kind of radio chatter in your ear. There's kind of some weird drama going on there. About the thing that you find at the bottom of the ocean.
So there's kind of a story mystery.
There's a little story. Yeah,
that's cool.
It doesn't really amount to anything.
Sure.
It's another shark.
So you can play it without that. I think I didn't actually go all the way down again because I was like, I'm kind of over this.
Yeah.
But I think there's no shark that time. It's just a sightseeing.
No shark mode.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you can also just kind of sit there at the top without ever going down, and just you're sitting in a coral reef basically.
Oh, that's cool.
Which seems like a pretty neat thing to do. It's just like a relaxing meditative thing, except the shark cage is still there around.
You can't just like please remove shark cage. So
that's what I wanted to do. It's like I would kind of hang out there to chill out.
Yeah. Oh, I have these awesome bars in front of me.
So that's the non-game portion.
How are
of
the
it.
gamey ones?
The gamey parts, like this thing actually contains the London heist,
Yeah.
which is something that I'd heard about and was looking forward to playing. And like I looked on their release list, and it's like, oh, PlayStation Worlds VR, what's that? I don't even know. But so it kind of blows my mind that they hid the London heist behind PlayStation.
Was it
Worlds
just not
VR.
enough? I mean, are these things really short?
Yes,
Okay.
all of them are short. Like it's a $40 thing.
Yeah.
So it feels a lot like they kind of packaged a bunch of throwaway things onto one or two interesting things.
Yeah.
I mean, those are literally the trade show demos. Like,
Yep.
everything in there is the stuff that we, like, most of us, the first time we played PSVR, it was London Heist,
Yeah.
or it was, like, most of the stuff that's in
Right.
here.
I mean, I
So
played the
it's-
shark thing when it was still Morpheus. It wasn't
Right.
even PSVR. Yeah.
And that's why it's so crazy that, like, there is a demo disc included with PSVR.
But it's just a very
it's
limited demo.
literal demos, yeah. Like, when they were doing this stuff, this is what I expected the demo disc to be. Like, this feels like it would have been a really smart pack-in.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the London Heist would make a very good demo because it not only shows like the one of the main VR mechanics that's come out is like a shooting gallery. You've got your two move controllers. I'm pretty sure you can also play it with a DualShock, but I didn't actually try that. But you've got your two move controllers and you're pulling triggers to fire guns. And this one is, it's got 2 or 3 sequences of just kind of arcadey shooting. It's a lot like a light gun game, really.
Yeah.
But it's dressed up. Well, one of the nice things about it, though, is you have to reload by grabbing a magazine in one hand and then popping it into the bottom of the gun.
That's really cool. I like that.
It doesn't keep track for you of how many bullets you have left. So you just have to keep shooting until you hear a click and then grab one, or
Yeah.
Lebowski reference. Yes,
Yeah.
I know. And you could count the number of times you're
Yeah.
firing. What I ended up doing most of the time was just holding a clip in my left hand as I fired with my
And then
right.
waiting
Oh,
for it
that's
to
smart.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
boop.
Yeah.
It's like when you do a heist in real life. It's kind of
just
your
like that,
MO.
yeah.
Yeah. They
Yeah,
call them all
and
left-hand
Oakland
magazine
heist.
Stapleton.
So there's the first one. You're just shooting your way out of this heist gone wrong. After you do a little bit of the kind of puzzle solving that you see in Batman at the beginning, basically. You're just combining manipulating things to try and open a safe.
Yeah.
And then you do that, and then the alarm's tripped, so you got to fight your way out, and then cut to you and your accomplice driving away, and you're shooting at the window of your car. You can shoot him in the head and it doesn't do anything. It just goes right through.
Yeah.
And
I go on everything. You're like, how can I hurt my friend in
oh
this
yeah,
game?
oh yeah.
I
No,
mean, I do that in games a lot too, though. Like, even in non-VR games.
Yeah.
Like,
right. No, and this one, like the intro is just you kind of sitting in a pub and having these gangsters explain some heist stuff to you, and you've got a cigarette lighter and a phone and some other gadgets. And a cigar, you can like light your cigar.
Yeah, yeah.
And then somebody else wants you to light their cigar. But I was just taking that lighter, and I like took the phone and was trying to burn the phone.
Seeing if I could create a Molotov cocktail.
I was trying to burn my hand. As soon as somebody got close enough, I tried to burn his face.
Yeah.
So none of that actually worked, but it was fun.
So don't go to the pub with Dan. You ruined my phone and burned me, and then yourself.
I'm a pyro drunk. But like the thing that really dresses this thing up is that the guys you're talking to they're really well acted and animated. Like it looks better than Batman.
Yeah.
These character models because they've been built from the ground up to be viewed with from VR.
Yeah.
I guess they're probably more comparable to Joe Chill in the beginning of Batman.
Sure.
Like that level of detail and
Yeah.
expressiveness. And they're really well acted. The writing's good.
Sort of like Guy Ritchie-esque.
Right, very Guy Ritchie-esque. And it's fun to watch that play out. Again, it's something you probably wouldn't want to do over and over again. What you do want to do over and over again, like this is one of the rare games here that actually has some replayability because it's got shooting ranges.
Oh, nice.
So there are 3 different shooting ranges, and they've got like one of them's just like straight up shooting range with targets popping up, and there are friendly targets in there which aren't in the actual game. So it's a little bit more involved in that you have to show some restraint.
Yeah.
And then there's one where there's like a track going by in front of you and paint cans going by on the track, and then you have to shoot the paint cans at the right time so they fall into the appropriately colored barrels.
Oh, nice.
All the while there's other things going on that you have to shoot as well.
Yeah.
So and then there's one where it's dark and then lights will come on in specific places where where targets are. So there are different gimmicks to it, and leaderboards.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would totally play an entire game that was like that, like Point Blank, which was an old an arcade game that was just a ton of different like small mini games that were like gun based.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this one is not. This one, all right. So yeah, the London heist is my favorite part of that.
Okay.
But it can't quite carry everything. I can't like super recommend this disc or not disc. What am I saying?
Yeah.
Package
thing.
or whatever it is.
Collection or
Yeah,
whatever,
it's if it were by itself, I would totally recommend it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, $40 is on the highest end of at least the PSVR launch games. Right?
Battlezone is 60.
Oh wow.
Oh wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And we're still working on the review of that.
Yeah.
Vince is working on that. He doesn't really care for the single player very much because it's a little bit light and weightless, and the AI is not very good. But we're waiting for the multiplayer servers to come on, and he's hopeful that the multiplayer will be cool.
That'd be cool.
Nice.
Yeah, and so I mentioned before how we reviewed sort of wave 1 of
Right.
the VR games, and then now we're getting wave 2, which is going to be stuff like Rez and Keep Talking, Nobody Explodes,
Yep.
stuff like that.
But the other things in this package.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to get to the less interesting ones. So the first two we talked about were pretty cool.
Yeah,
right?
those also
right. So then there's Luge VR,
Oh, I thought that. Yeah.
which it's you're losing.
Yeah, Illusion. So when I played it,
it's an illusion of
they laid me
losing.
down. They laid me down on like a bed.
Yeah, I tried that.
Yeah.
Just lying on the floor. It didn't seem to add much to it, so I just played, sitting cross-legged on the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, among other things, I was disappointed by kind of the lack of sensation of speed. Like
Yeah.
you get a sensation of movement definitely, and you're going fast, but it's saying you're going over 100 miles an hour. It's like
totally
this
doesn't
doesn't
feel
feel
like
like even you're like super low to the ground because you're supposedly lying on the ground
Yeah.
looking down, and it just like whenever you get close to the ground, like the sensation of speed gets greater, right? Because the ground around you is moving faster relative to where you are. So I was disappointed by the lack of sense of speed, and it's just not a very interesting game. You're controlling it just by looking right and left, so like that's your only control.
Is that you turning a little bit? Is that
Yeah.
what?
And then there's just obstacles you avoid,
Yeah.
and you lose speed if you hit an oncoming truck, you lose a little bit of speed.
Yeah. Just like real
Just
life.
like real life.
It's like real life. So it's not a very interesting game.
Yeah.
And then we've got one that is kind of good. It's a 3D VR version of Pong, basically.
Okay.
So you're it's called Death Ball. So you are standing on one end, your opponent's on the other end, and the ball is bouncing back and forth, and it works because you've got stereoscopic 3D.
Yeah.
So you can tell exactly where this thing is most of the
wow.
time. And
Are you running back and forth, or
no,
you...
you're standing there, and you control your paddle by looking, which actually works really well. It's
Oh,
very
wow.
precise.
Yeah. Interesting.
And the like this one would be really cool if it had multiplayer.
Yeah.
But again, it's just leaderboards.
Yeah.
Like you can there's a mode where it's just like, okay, hit this quadrant of the back, and then this one, and you get rack up points. That's not that interesting.
Sure.
Yeah. Or maybe it's interesting first couple times, but it's
Right.
like eventually you want like,
Yeah.
hey, come over and play VR. We'll
Yeah, it's
take
like
turns.
I'm practicing this skill to nail this thing right on, and then I've got nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Because the AI is not very good.
Yeah.
Like it's okay the first couple times I played it because I was just learning how this works. You can like if you time your head movement for like when the thing's about to hit your paddle, you can put a little English on it and spin it.
Yeah.
And shoot a curveball at them, and that almost always kills the AI. And there are a bunch of AI opponents that each have a unique ability. So going through them was a little bit of fun, but like it only took me 2 or 3 tries to get through them.
Yeah.
yeah.
And once you do, it's like, well, I guess that's over.
Yeah. That was $8 of the $40 of the package, or I guess $9 of the $40. Yeah.
And okay, and the last one is called Scavengers Odyssey.
Okay.
And it is a if it were on a console or a PC, it would be a very, very generic first-person shooter sci-fi where you are piloting a mech.
Okay.
So that's how they get around the idea that, oh, why aren't I moving my legs? It's because you're in a mech and they're
Yeah.
just driving this vehicle like you would a tank. So you're playing that with the DualShock. It's just got kind of this generic sci-fi mysticism plot. It's got excuse me.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm delightful to listen to.
I get really worked up when I talk
Don't
about
worry,
mechs
he was
as well.
eating pumpkin bread.
Yeah, I
for
ate
the
pumpkin
first-
bread for the first section of this podcast.
All right. So, and it's got just 2 weapons.
Yeah.
It's got, the enemy variety is just like these little bugs that crawl toward you and you mow them down with your machine gun, or a slightly bigger bug that like spits at you, or the final boss, or a turret. And it's over in like less than 2 hours. The only thing I like about it really is that it's one of those things where you can launch your mech, jump basically, but it's not just like push a button and jump. It's like you push a button and it plots out where you're going to land. So you see where you're going to land. So you can do that, but then when you're midair, you can do it again.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I was enjoying that double jump.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
Yeah.
Come for the double jump. Don't stay for anything else.
Right. And again, 0 replayability.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah, those are weird. Those are weird things to include. Like the shark thing totally sounds like something I would, like show my friend who's coming over or whatever. And I think, honestly, same thing with London. Like those 2 feel like good fits. The other 3 are very strange to include in what is theoretically, like if you buy that bundle, that is the first collection that you have. So like that's most people's
Because
first
that
VR
comes
experience.
with the $500 version. Right?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people, like one of their first VR experiences will be one of these 5 things.
This will
And
be
so that's,
VR's Wii Sports, but not.
yeah, and it's like if your very first thing in VR ever is Scavengers Odyssey, like that doesn't seem like a really good way to sell the platform.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay.
Yeah.
But it's just not. It's not inspiring.
Sure.
Yeah. And so what did you end up giving the collection?
Give it a 6.
Give it a 6.
Fair?
So I guess fine. Let's move on. That's the last thing we've asked everybody, and you're probably the best one you can speak to this, just because you reviewed it. The hardware itself. What
pretty
did you
good.
think of PSVR?
Surprisingly good.
Yeah.
I reviewed both the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive. And this one is, not as good as those because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
But it is surprisingly competent. Like it's better than I expected it to be, and it's more comfortable.
Yeah.
Even though it's heavier, it is more comfortable to wear because it's not like scuba goggles or a mask where it's strapped onto your head and pulled tight against your face like that. It rests on the crown of your head with a the kind of hard plastic crown, and then the actual screen is it slides over your eyes, which makes it's much less pressure applied to your face, so you don't get VR face later.
You know, those
Yeah.
weird raccoon eyes.
Right.
Yeah, it has that nice like padding against it too.
Yeah.
Right, which I like, except that I really like how it wraps around your nose. It's got this split flap in the middle that wraps around your nose and blocks out light better than the Vive or the Oculus. Those I can always kind of look down and see stuff around my nose.
Yeah.
And I stop noticing it when I'm playing
Sure.
a game after a while, but it's nice that this completely blocks it out. And you can slide it away from your eyes in order to look around if you want to without taking the whole headset off.
Cool.
But yeah, the screen quality is surprisingly good. It's lower resolution than the Vive and the Oculus. I believe the Oculus and Vive are 2160 by 1200 combined resolution. They each have 2 screens, one for each eye.
Yeah.
Whereas the PSVR is just 1080p. So it's not a dramatically higher resolution, but it is noticeable.
Yeah.
I mean, is it one of those noticeable as in it's noticeable if you go from one to the other? Like,
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to look at any of them and say, "Wow, this is amazingly high resolution."
Sure,
yeah. But it does make a significant difference in the amount of detail you see.
yeah.
One place where the PSVR screen is better is the screen door effect. And what that means is the lines between a pixel. Like if you put your phone up to your face, if you don't have like a super high resolution phone, you can see the lines between the pixels. It's like if you were looking through a screen door. Sony did a really good job of minimizing that.
Nice.
So that alone makes text much more readable than it was on the Oculus Rift DK2 Development Kit 2. So I was very happy about that.
Nice.
Because that was one of my big concerns is like, oh, am I going to be able to read stuff in like Valkyrie or Job Simulator? And that didn't turn out to be a problem at all. The one place where it's disappointing, and that's a pretty big area, kind of a pillar of VR, is the motion tracking. because it uses the PSVR camera, or the PlayStation camera rather, instead of dedicated IR sensors like the Oculus or the Vive's Lighthouse laser IR thing, which is crazy technology.
It's magical. Yeah.
Right. Those you place in opposite corners of the room, and it covers your entire room basically.
Creates like a giant cube that you can walk around in.
Right. So this is just one point of view, and it's which the Oculus also has, but it doesn't. The Oculus doesn't yet have its motion tracking controller, so it's hard to compare that. But it's just one point of view, which means not only is it a very narrow area, so you can stand still, but if you move a lot or significantly anyway, you're going to hit the limits of it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like playing Job Simulator, there are counters are all around you, or at least in front of you, like 180 degrees, and you can reach out and mess with stuff. But I was, pretty frequently running into things like I'd reach down to open a drawer and my hand would stop before it got there. My hand kept moving, but what I saw is my hand stopped moving, which is disorienting. I had a few instances where tracking just got messed up, and I still don't know why. I used it at home in that same spot later, and it was fine.
Yeah, Chloe was mentioning the same thing with Until Dawn, where there's a couple times the character just wigged out, and she had no idea why.
Yeah, and it's I think the two things in your review that struck me as that they would break the immersion are the obvious example of if you turn your back to the camera, then it doesn't know where you are, and you can't interact with anything.
Well, it knows where you are because the headset still has some lights on the back,
But not where your
right. It doesn't.
hands are.
If your body is between the camera and your hands, it doesn't know where your hands are.
That's really interesting, and then also kind of what you were just talking about, that if you drop something, like in the game, obviously if you drop the controller, you can't play either. But in the game, if you drop something, it just sort of teleports back to you because it knows you can't pick it up.
Right. It doesn't cover the floor. Like the viewing angle of the camera is not wide enough.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's really interesting because like in Job Simulator on like Vive, for example, if you drop a coffee cup, you can bend down and pick it up.
Yep.
And like honestly, that sounds like such a stupid thing, but that really is an immersive moment. Or even in like Budget Cuts, there's like you have to go through a hatch on the floor. At one point,
is the one I was trying to think of earlier with the inventory.
Yeah, and that's like a really funny one because like you physically want to climb through the floor and you can't.
Yep.
like little things like that are really funny, and they kind of sell. That's like what sold me on VR are moments like that, and I feel like
watching people try and put their head through the floor.
Yeah, exactly, and like those really fine moments are missing from PSVR, which as like at a platform level is that's a hard thing to work around.
Yeah, I mean, having used the Vive, it's disappointing. I wonder how disappointing it would be not having used the Vive.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally.
So that might be if you just have a PS4 and don't have a gaming PC, like maybe it's one of those things.
don't know any better.
You don't know any better.
Yeah.
Like exactly. Like if you don't have a Blu-ray player, DVDs look fine.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the example I used in the review is if like you'll never have an experience in this where a monster pops up behind you and you turn around and shoot it, because if you turn 180 degrees, it doesn't know where your gun hand is.
Yeah.
That's kind of a bummer.
Yeah. Whereas Vive, that's a really fun thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do think, like, considering the price and considering that it will just work, like, if you have a PS4, this works, it seems like they did a good job. Like, it seems like, considering the limitations, like, when I was reading your review, having used it especially, but not really for any great length, like, I think the longest I've ever used it uninterrupted was 20 minutes. So, reading your review, I'm sort of happy to hear that this is, especially if you've never used Vive or anything, it sounds like a great first VR experience for people.
Yeah, and it
does sound like my first VR. Like not in a bad way, like just in a that's kind of what it is.
Well, I mean, one of the places they messed up a little bit there is in the ease of setup. Whereas the Oculus is really good at that. The Oculus, you plug in a couple USB cables and a HDMI cable and you're off. This one has its own breakout box, which requires its own power.
Yeah.
Which there are 6 cables that plug into that breakout box.
Wow.
It makes a big mess.
Yeah.
So if your wife likes to have a tidy living room, be prepared to unhook it every time you use it. After every time, because you can't really hide this thing.
Yeah, it's a lot of cables.
Yep.
And you and I were talking about that in the FAQ they put up on Sony's site. Just for 3D audio, you also need wired headphones, which is like not that big of a deal, but it's yet another wire that you
Yeah.
need to have going into this thing.
Yeah, and it annoyed me the placement of the headphone jack on this thing, which is on the inline remote. So like it just immediately tangles the cord. Like the moment you take off the headphones, if you're using earbuds, the moment you take those off for any reason and come back, you have to untangle the headphone from the headset thing. Whereas the Vive, the headphone jack is like on the top of your head actually.
Yeah. Huh. The Matrix. That was in their necks.
And the Oculus has built-in headphones.
Yeah.
Which I actually really like that.
Those are pretty good.
Yep.
Like they're surprisingly good for things that are built in. I'm a little worried, like if one of them busts, like, do I need a new headset?
You can replace that piece. Like you can pop those off.
My worries.
Yeah.
Unfounded.
I'm sure it's not like super cheap.
Sure. Yeah. But it's not like, well, the whole thing. has to be
Warrior number 2. What if I die alone?
Hey, then no one's gonna complain about the fact that you have a bunch of
Yeah, my
cables.
tiny cables. That's true. That's
Awesome.
cool.
So I guess just final thoughts. What did you score the PSVR?
I give it an 8.5.
Great point 5.
Yes.
Great point mediocre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah. That's exactly how it works.
I do recommend it if you are interested in VR.
Yeah.
Like this is a much more affordable way to go about it than the PC version, and much more capable than the phone versions.
Yeah, especially if you already have the PS4, obviously.
Yeah.
Awesome, very cool.
Awesome.
And then, we can expect in the coming weeks / I guess rest of the year, we're going to be reviewing a lot of PSVR games, from launch games to sort of the add-on experiences like the Rise of the Tomb Raider PSVR stuff.
And Star Wars Battlefront, and
Whatever-
Yeah, and
What
a
kind of
bunch
good
of Vive experiences being ported over.
Yeah.
Oculus
Yeah.
experiences. Like Job Simulator has been out on Vive forever.
Yeah.
It's out now. Eve Valkyrie was a launch game for the Oculus.
That's right.
It's coming soon.
Is Riggs this year?
Riggs, yes.
Yeah. I don't like Riggs.
Oh,
We
What are you wanting?
actually just got that. So.
Oh, John Riggs.
shout out to John Rigg.
Well, it really matters is Rez, which I'm very excited for.
Well, awesome.
Cool.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you so much, Dan. Yes, read Dan's review.
Z.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess the hardware and the games. Cool. Thank you so much, Dan.
All right, I'm going to go get a drink of water.
Go get a drink of water.
In VR.
No! And what a bake-off it was.
The greatest.
This
British
video is
Bake-Off.
not going to make any sense. The audio's not going to make any sense. One of the transitions was just us vamping while Jared left.
I think it's going to make perfect sense.
Just like Old Jesse's cinnamon buns. Is that what they make on British Bake Off? Old Jesse makes the cinnamon buns?
What?
I don't know. Is that a British Bake Off?
Every week is a different category.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, it's like one week they're like, oh, this week we're doing
That's really great.
cakes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that. Yeah, all right. So just housekeeping notes at the end of the show. Andrew, what are you working on? People can find you at Garfep.
At Garfep on Twitter. Yep, and we have a whole bunch of like interview stuff coming. There's some really interesting things coming for the fall because there's a lot of like kind of those last preview events we're getting to talk to some
We
interesting
talked to
people.
Sean Layden. The first
Yep.
breakout went up and more.
Two
Oh,
are up.
okay,
Actually,
cool.
by the time you're listening to this, they're all up.
Okay, and we talked to him about PSVR. Sean Layden
Yep.
is...
Yep. I guess now he's head of Worldwide Studios, right?
yeah.
And Sean Layden, who you may recognize wearing a Vib Ribbon shirt from several press conferences,
to Vib
well,
Ribbon.
just the one. Ryan and Marty went down to Sony and talked to him. We have some really interesting comments on that, kind of about future versions of PSVR and about that aim controller for Farpoint, how that could be used in other places. And then also the one I found the most interesting, what beyond gaming can PSVR do? Like how could Hollywood use this? How could other experiences happen?
Yeah.
All that's on the site. And then from all kinds of other events, we have lots of cool preview content going up.
Cool. Yeah. You can, I'm on Twitter at McBiggity. I was out last week because I was in Montreal with Zach, doing Watch Dogs 2 for IGN First. That's our IGN First for October.
Yep.
On the site now, we have a mission reveal called False Prophet. It's a really cool mission about sort of infiltrating a fake Scientology-esque religion that is helmed by a Tom Cruise-esque wash-up actor. It's actually a really cool mission.
So you jump on the couch?
Jumps on a ton
Does
of
he
couch.
do cool cocktail flips?
He does very cool cocktail flips.
Yeah. In
the
what's
movie
that?
Cocktail.
Yeah. He does all the cool.
Oh, okay, I was thinking of literally like flips, not just like.
Oh, he flips while holding a cocktail and doesn't spill.
Yeah,
It's like when you
incredible.
pull a tablecloth out from under it.
It's exactly
Table.
like that. So we're gonna have impressions, all sorts of stuff all months. Check that out. Go.ign.com/watchdogs2. Also, we have a new thing. I'm gonna read this without paraphrasing. We have a new thing called IGN Spoken Editions, which is on iTunes. You can subscribe IGN Spoken Editions, and it's pretty much read aloud audio versions of news articles and reviews. And
It's sort of like when you
stuff.
listen to an audiobook,
Yeah.
but for IGN articles. So
Yeah.
if you're driving to work and you want to essentially read a preview or a review or anything like that, it's like most of our articles are available
Yeah,
there.
which I think would be super cool for longer form stuff, for reviews and for maybe interviews and for like, especially like features. Like I'd love to go back and do like Colin's history of pieces and Mitch's history of like Naughty Dog and did you Insomniac suck?
Yeah,
suck much?
Insomniac, Mitch did Montreal, Ubisoft
Montreal,
Montreal.
yeah. So that'd be really cool. So check that out, IGN Spoken Editions. And also, finally, IGN House Party for our 20th anniversary.
Yep.
Which is being held on Saturday, October 15th. So that's about a week and a half away here in San Francisco. Tickets are still available. Some tickets are still available. I don't know what the Eventbrite link is, but just if you go to IGN's Twitter,
It's
the pinned tweet.
It's the pinned tweet, or just go to IGN.com/houseparty or IGN House Party. And it's also, you get a tour of the office, too. It includes First Friday, which many of you may know, which is you get to come through the office on the Friday before and meet everybody, take a tour.
Then we have a whole thing planned all day Saturday, pretty much, where there's going to be a bunch of pretty much everyone you've seen on the show and a lot of people you've seen in the past on the show are going to be there. We're going to be doing all sorts of live stuff, hangouts, drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, a ton of fun. So
maybe Tom Cruise will be there.
He's not.
Yeah,
Tom
Cruise is probably not.
He's absolutely not going to be
I mean,
there.
he could be a fan. He could buy a ticket right now.
Yeah, you can absolutely.
He was
Also,
like, oh man, I was going to come, me, Tom Cruise, but you got that go to
it's
IGN
me,
link
Tom
wrong.
Cruise. And then you can, if you can't come to San Francisco, you can hang out with us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/podcastbeyond.
Or on YouTube at youtube.com/IGNBeyond.
Yes. The Facebook group is generally just awesome, and we're in there, and it's just a really cool community. And the YouTube channel is also really cool. That's where this podcast lives, as well as Let's Plays. We played a bunch of Persona 5. We're going to put that up at some point in our lives.
Yeah, it'll be on IGN very soon. There's some complications with YouTube, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's going to be very good. Andrew and I learned Japanese. No, we didn't.
I've been playing a lot of Persona 5. You can follow my exploits on Twitter, too. I beat the 3rd dungeon already.
Yeah, but
I'm like 30 hours in. Still
you don't have to follow his exploits, though.
Yeah, I'm saying you can if you want to. You
don't have to.
But you can.
But you don't have to.
You can also see the pumpkin bread as I eat it. I'm gonna live stream
on
myself.
Twitch. You can't do Twitch. Oh no, you can do food on Twitch.
Yeah.
That's one of the things you don't get in trouble for.
Yeah.
Again, thank you all much for hanging out. Podcast. Oh jeez, that was the wrong one. Podcast Beyond episode 462. For Andrew, I am Marty. We'll have a bigger crew next week. But until then, Beyond.
Beyond.
We did good.
We did great.
No, we didn't.
0.5.